these for free energy for the planet Earth. They're not going to build these places where individuals who want to go up there and start a new lifestyle or to try something new, they're not going to allow that to happen. But space migration, as people say, it'll never happen in a lifetime. As we're talking today, our third shuttle is up there, and they're performing experiments.
Somebody's already sold advertising time on the space shuttle to be broadcast back. I mean, they're really getting serious about this.
And I have several friends in high positions, and I say hi in the political sense, who are angling and wangling to be the first civilians in space, the first tourists in space. That's already going to happen within the next 5 years. So space migration it's not a hallucination. It is a fact. It's happening right now. The question is it going to be a military or is it going to be a civilian operation?
That's the increased intelligence part of your formula, isn't it?
The intelligence increase has to do with the fact that unless we smarten up, when we go up there, we'll simply drag the old Cold War up there. And what good does it do if we're going to be in space playing the same silly, competitive, mammalian power territory games? Now, the way to increase your intelligence is through the intelligent use of drugs and through the intelligent use of computers and the electronic and video extensions of the human brain. Computers and video games are, to the 80s, what drugs like acid were to the 60s. Why? Because the first time we can talk back to the machine. And kids in the arcades who are spending, the funny thing is, kids under the age of 15 spend more money in video arcade space games, that's $8 billion a year, than our country is spending on a real-time space program.
And the town fathers are spending more time trying to close down video parlors than they are trying to repair potholes in roads.
They should do that. I mean, if I were an old-fashioned senile dinosaur, I would ban video games. Why? Because the kids who are doing them are learning to accelerate their brains. They're learning to talk back and manipulate instead of being passive boob tube addicts just sitting there with a six-pack listening to Howard Cosell. They're learning to outwit the machine. They're learning how to press and enter and dial, and they're learning to speed up their brain. Now, once they can do that with a video game, and those video games, by the way, get more and more and more complicated, the kids are getting smarter and smarter. After a while, they're going to look at Johnny Carson, they're going to look at Dan Rather and say, come on, let's detonate, or we can move beyond them. Yeah.
So they're learning some skills for the 21st century.
Absolutely, and they're getting smarter, and no grown-up wants the kids to get any smarter than they are. Isn't that right?
Well, you have holdouts a lot of hope for post-Hiroshima
yes, one of the most amazing things that's happening. The reason why, in spite of the fact that the planet Earth has never been more insane, and the level of news is at the moron paleolith level, and I'm talking about New York Times and ABC. We're being fed total disinformation, and the thing is really going to... On the other hand, I'm optimistic for one reason. In 1946, there began the most amazing event in human history, the baby boom. The birth rate in the United States doubled, so that instead of having 38, we had 76 million kids born between those 18 years. 40 million more of you than we expected. We weren't geared up to have 40 million more of you. You invaded us. 76 million little aliens who wanted better baby diapers, and you wanted post-doses, and you wanted designer jeans with Gloria Vanderbilt's name on your ass. You wanted the best dope, you wanted the best sex, you wanted the best, you want excellence. You've been spoiled. Well, why not? Now you are going to
get it.
You're going to take over. See, in 1988, the baby boom people will be between the ages of, figure it out, 24 and 42.
Right.
You're going to control this country. Furthermore, your children will be between the ages of 0 and up to 20. That means it's an enormous block. And you're mutants. You people from the new post-Hiroshima generation have been trained in what Alvin Toffler calls a third wave. Your communication people.
I just saw Alvin
Your information
Toffler.
People. Your fast-moving people. Your multiple reality people. You're not going to get
able
sucked
to
in.
make choices on your destiny, choosing job work,
and
choosing
thinking
lifestyle.
Fast, yes, and communications and information rather than control and power. So you're going to take over. So unless they blow you up.
We call that around here. We call like that group the new middle. We figure you had a new left and a new right. You got to have something that really works. It's the new middle.
I don't think the left-right thing works anymore. I think it's future-past.
Future-past.
I'm debating Gordon Liddy right now, and it's not left-wing or right-wing because he's both. I mean, the left wing and the right wing both agree they want to have a police-state military control.
Exactly.
So don't call me left. Don't call me right. I'm a futurist, and the future is Einsteinian. It's relativity. It's change. It's polarity. I mean, it's plurality. It's difference. It's fast-moving.
You talked a bit before about drugs and drugs that will increase intelligence. That's the way you related to the LSD, the whole LSD tripping that you were so you were jailed for,
Uh-huh.
was using it as an intelligence increase.
Yes, I'm still 100% for drugs as options for the individual to choose to expand your brain or not. I'm not for any one drug, and then anyone who uses a drug, you don't know where it came from, or you don't know why you're using it, and you don't know why and how and exactly, precisely where it fits into your life of growth, whether it's recreation on a Friday night, or whether it's a heavy-duty LSD session that's going to reprogram your brain. If you know, drugs should not be used. Our kind of drugs should not be used recreationally. They should be used recreationally, to recreate a new reality or to open up a new possibility or options for yourself. So I'm not advocating any one single drug, but the notion of using these receptor sites in your brain to open up newer programs of your brain to make you a smarter person. But you got to be prepared. You got to know what you're doing. Have guides and.
Okay, we will be back after another message from our sponsor for more conversations.
Who's the sponsor?
Welcome back. Our guest today is Dr. Timothy Leary. I wanted to talk to you a bit about evolution. This whole space migration that we were talking about before is part of an evolutionary pattern that the human race is going through. Is that?
I think evolution is the key to everything, and I think everyone should write the words evolution and put it in a bumper sticker in your car, have it tattooed on your forehead. Evolution. Now, most people don't understand what evolution is because the Darwinian scientists tell you evolution takes place over 50 million years and it's slow and nothing you can do about it.
Right.
It's blind chance and it's the male machos getting bigger and stronger, survival of the fittest, and that's totally wrong.
Don't use your pinky long enough, it disappears.
Yeah, that's totally wrong. Our modern DNA scientists have showed us that evolution and genetic DNA mutation can take place in your lifetime. That means that don't believe what they tell you, that it's going to take millions of years. You can evolve in your own lifetime. Matter of fact, it's your duty as a human being in the 20th century to evolve and change. You should go through at least 20 more forms, 20 more mutations, 20 more new styles.
You're talking about subtle mutations. You're not talking about, when you say mutation, the first thing that comes to mind is somebody growing another arm or somebody going through, you know.
Well, corrective surgery can do that if you're
yeah,
interested
right.
in that. I'm talking about changing your brain. I'm talking about changing your realities through the use of your biocomputer. But I also mean moving, I mean changing jobs, I mean changing points of view. You're only as old as the last time you really changed your mind and got a new handle on a new reality. So that motion, change, thoughtful mobility, both inner and outer, are the keys. But what my function is, for 25 years now, I've been very involved in the youth movement. Now, they used to say, don't trust anyone over the age of 30. That's wrong. Don't trust anyone born before 1946. Now, this new generation has no leaders. That's the one thing about it. And I've never been a leader. I don't believe in leaders.
That was
I'm a cheerleader.
Forced on you in some.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a guru. I
Right.
despise gurus. I don't despise masters. I'm a cheerleader, and it's my job to be on the sidelines cheering young people on because the older people are trying to discourage you. They're trying to say, hey, the kids today are like the kids in the 1950s. They're bubble gum and so on. That's not true at all. The college and high school kids today are very sophisticated.
Well, Abbie Hoffman said that if you went to a college campus with him, you would be shocked to see the kind of people that you would be shocked that we get the message that they're very apathetic. And he says that's the last thing he ever sees on a college campus.
They're shrewd, they're calculating. Naturally, they want to make money, they're getting their careers together. But I tell you, on Thursday night, they party from Thursday to Sunday, and they're using more drugs, and they're having wilder sexual experiences, and they're having aesthetic experiences, and they're exploring their minds on those 3-day, 4-day weekends. And then they're spending a lot of time getting their scene together and learning how to make money, because you've got to learn how to make money in order to,
And you see this as a positive evolutionary step.
It's inevitable. I think it's inevitable. But it's my job to try to counteract the full-blown, all-out campaign on the part of the adult media to discourage you, all this depression and apathy that they're trying to sell, is deliberate. They're trying to make us feel impotent, and they're trying to make us feel the Russians are going to take us over, and we can't do anything about El Salvador, and we can't do anything about the Middle East, and prices are going to blah, blah. That's deliberate. You know, they want us to feel that way. They want to discourage. They want us to feel that we need a strong government, or only the government can take care of it. So it's my job as a cheerleader for change and as a cheerleader for youth is to tell you, don't listen to these people. Don't give up. Get smarter yourself. Improve your own skills. Disbelieve everything you're taught. Look for the pattern and believe in evolution. And there are enough of us out there around the country that think this way, that we'll be linking. And see, networks like this, we're talking to several thousand people right now. This is going on in cities all over the country. This is not ABC. This is not NBC. This is...
it's a low, small-time, individual process. We're doing something on an individual
evolution
level.
Always works this way. You're never going to find evolution in the Vatican newspaper or the London Times or the Washington Post. You're going to get the new evolutionary news through, you know, offbeat, counterculture.
So individualism is something that's necessary to this.
It's the key to everything.
Being an individual, staying, and the whole idea of go with the flow, where you can adapt, the adaptability of an individual.
Well, I wouldn't say adapt. Don't adapt. Prevail. Don't go with the flow. Don't float downstream like a George Harrison, you know, amoeba. Be smart. Band together. Create your own reality and make it happen.
Another thing that's interesting that I found interesting was the concept of a multiple reality.
Yeah.
That everything isn't just one way or another. That we have.
The great battle today, if you want to use that metaphor, is between the multi-reality people and the mono-reality people. Now, your mono-reality people believe there's one reality, one God, one virtue, one country, one chauvinism, and they'll kill you if you get in their way. Whereas multiple reality people, and I'm talking going back to Einstein, people like Carlos Castaneda, the new neurology, the new psychology, young people, particularly those who have experimented with drugs, know that there are many different realities. Each of us carries around a brain, which is perfect. The human brain is perfect. All this original sin stuff, and that we're screwed and all that, and there were
another tool to oppress.
To try to make us. The human brain is perfect. Even the Ayatollah Khomeini's brain is perfect. It's the programming, the early religious and political programming that screws us up. The brain is perfect. We got to learn how to use it, and we are. And once you learn to use your brain, you see there are as many realities as there are focuses on your cameras or your neurological equipment.
So it would follow that the technology, to me it would follow that technology, people who are getting used to using technology, like we were talking about the video games, will also learn to program their own realities.
And you
if
really
you get dexterous with this machine and know that you can tune in 86 TV channels, possibly you can tune in something else up here.
And you know, see, a big thing now are the video dishes, where for $2,000 or $3,000 you get a black market.
Dish on your house.
Yeah, so that you can get hundreds and hundreds of channels. You can get the Russians, you can get the military, you can get the police, you can get the British. That gives the individual power, because intelligence is the power that the individual has to receive, integrate, and transmit. So if you can get on programs like this, if you can listen to programs like this, and encourage programs like this, you're expanding individual
the home computer's part of that,
too.
The
home computer.
That's another element that...
Totally subversive. You know that in Russia, you can't have programs like this. In Russia, you can't have home computers. Matter of fact, even hand calculators are banned in Russia.
Right, but it's a big black market business over
there. Of course,
yeah.
Sure.
The thing that I just saw, very little article in the paper, in the back of a paper, about trying to get laws to protect our privacy because we now have home computers. And the first thought that came to my mind is, I haven't got anything to hide. Why are they protecting my privacy? Maybe they want to protect their privacy.
The people who really are interested in secrets are, of course, the government people. You know, all this stuff about leaks in the White House. The only time they're worried about leaks is when they're in hot water or the hot air and like that. The average individual, number one, you can protect your secrets. I mean, I don't want J. Edgar Hoover's camera in my bedroom.
Right.
Although, and sometimes I think it'd be good if it were, because they'd learn some things that they probably need to know. But the people that are concerned with secrets are the ones that want your secrets. Anyone who knows how to deal with a computer, you can protect your own programs if you want to, if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I agree with you that we've got to learn how to use these technologies, which are the extension of the brain. You can't use drugs intelligently today unless you know something about computers and computer programs and access codes, because all drugs are really are access codes to get into the biocomputer of your own brain. And once you get there, then you have to learn not just to lay back and let the thing spin out. You have to learn how to program it and select and use it to
that's what you were doing
to get control of your reality.
Isn't that what you were doing with way back when you were working with prisoners, is basically reprogramming their brain through...
Well, we didn't reprogram their brain, because we're against reprogramming other people's brains. We taught them how to selectively brainwash themselves.
I think it's an important point, is getting those words straight.
Yeah,
yeah.
We're never trying to brainwash anybody else. The only protection against brainwashing, and there's going to be more and more brainwashing. I'm not talking about ABC, NBC. I'm talking about electronic brainwashing. I'm talking about new drugs that the government's developing. The only protection that an individual citizen has against being brainwashed is the clean mind. If you know how to manipulate your own computer, then they're not going to be able to do it. So everything I've done in the last 25 years has been to train people to learn how to use their own brain computer, and so they can avoid brainwashing.
Well, in looking over some of the information I had, I started remembering back. I said, we were talking off the camera, I was only a little kid when your first name first appeared, and a lot of the things that were attributed to were not your doing at all. The advocating of just blatant use of LSD, the whole thing that was not yours. As I get older, I seem to think that was done by the 6 o'clock news, telling everybody that's
they wanted to. Drug education in this country was then and still is like sex education 100 years ago. Don't do it. We're going to have a sex-free, drug-free society. Right, Mrs. Reagan is going around, of all things, Mrs. Reagan is now a big drug expert, going around, we're going to stamp out drugs.
She's now working for...
Although she does admit that every one of her children has used illegal drugs. I mean, there's the paradox. And that's a nice thing about it. At least she'll admit it. But, yes, the press was trying to set me up as someone who was advocating drug abuse. Well, of all people in the world, I should want drugs not to be abused, because my career, my livelihood, even my life depends upon people using drugs intelligently and happily for growth purposes. So all of the books and manuals and the lectures and the mottos that we sent out, that you should be disciplined, you should know what you're doing, have a guide, never take a drug unless you know what it is, which common sense, any intelligent drug user knows, these signals got jammed by the static, and they set me up as saying everybody should drop acid. Well, of course,
tune in, turn on, and drop
Anyone who knows anything about acid, the last thing in the world you want to do is just pop acid and say, hey, try this. You have to plan 2 or 3 days ahead. You should know what you're doing. You should be in a place surrounded by people that are going to
know where it came
from. So I'm more opposed to drug abuse. See, the paradox is the police love bad acid trips. And if someone takes acid, and it's usually acid that's bad because it was spiked by the FDA or the EA, takes what's called acid and freaks out and runs down Broadway naked, the police love that because it proves what they want to prove. Stay away from your brain. Stay away from it. But to me, a bad trip that anyone has, I'm the one that suffers. My program suffers. So I tell you, I'm the world's most vehement opponent to a stupid, badly planned drug abuse trip.
Well, in the one article of yours, you talk about the fact that the drugs, it was a big fight to get drug abuse part of the FBI, the police state, as opposed to health, education, and welfare.
Yeah.
That was a big to-do, that the Kennedys were very for health, education, welfare taking over drugs.
Yes, if Jack Kennedy had not been killed, because Jack Kennedy was using drugs. As a matter of fact, we had Jack Kennedy's mistress was bringing drugs that we sent to Jack Kennedy into the White House. If he had lived, he would not have let the police take over drugs, because he knew too much about it. He was a very sophisticated person. Traveled in sophisticated circuits. Plus the fact that he'd had so many operations on his back that he knew all about painkillers, and he was a patient of Dr. Jake, the feel-good doctor. That's all well known, so I'm not just spinning out rumors here.
And he was
Jack would have turned drug control over to the FDA and emphasized research and licensing, and he would not have turned it over to the worst scum of the earth, the narcotics police, because everybody knows how bad you got to have an FBI, you got to have police. I'm not against the police. You have to have people out there doing their job, but everyone agrees that the narcotics agents are the bottom of the barrel. They're the sleaziest law enforcement agents, and what are they? They're their thought police, their culture police, trying to interfere with people's lifestyles. And so we wouldn't have had this unfortunate situation where narcotics people were deliberately giving bad drugs, deliberately causing bad trips, publicizing bad trips. I don't think that would have happened as much if the Kennedys had not been assassinated.
We now have an administration that's even worse than probably, I think, one of the worst we've had with as far as military control types, control heads in charge.
You're talking about the Reagan administration?
Yeah, the Reagan, the one running now. I think there's more military in that government than before.
Reagan is 100 times more dangerous than Nixon, and he's undoing the whatever positive things that came from the Nixon administration of some sort of detente with China and leaving South America alone. Yeah, Reagan's 100 times worse than...
This kind of oppression, though, only leads me to think that well, maybe that'll encourage space migration again. I mean, the more oppressive we get, the more chance we got of getting out of here. At least the more motivation there is.
That's the paradox. The more overpopulated the globe gets, the more obvious it becomes that the old systems aren't working, the more obvious it becomes that the next move to the next frontier, to the next ecological niche, we've got to see. Space migration eliminates overpopulation. It eliminates overpollution. Technology should not be on the surface of an embryo planet. We shouldn't have these big plants and nuclear energies and things like this down here. There's more minerals on the moon, you know, just in the first 4 yards of the moon. There's more minerals than have ever been accessible in the United States, purer and more inexpensive, so that the place to run an industrial civilization is in high orbit, not down here on this delicate biosphere which we call planet Earth. So the worse things get down here, the more obvious it is that we have to have the window, the escalator, the stairway to the stars, and more people see. Everyone under the age of 15 knows that. Most people under the age of 20 know the space. You ask them. I ask them in my lectures, and talk to college students and say, what percentage of you would like to live in space? 60, 70%.
Yeah.
The Gallup poll asked that question. Average Americans, what percent of you would like to actually go into space? 42% said yes. I'm talking about geriatric cases and right-wing Republicans and East Coast people that want to go in subways, not highways. The farther west you go, the more people. In California and Oregon and Washington, 52% of the people personally want to go into space.
Is that mainly, do you think that might be because of they come from that kind of stock? That they were, their generations, they migrated, they were the pioneers who went over the Rockies? Is that, is it somehow designed in the system?
Oh yeah, the migrants are moving west, and I think most of the intelligent, restless, future-oriented people watching this program, you're going to migrate west sooner or later. I did. I spent the first 18 years of my life in the mysterious East Coast. I lived in Massachusetts and went to West Point and so forth. I migrated west because there simply is more future orientation. And I come to New York, and I want to give you intelligent, futurist New Yorkers all the strength and support I can, because it's tough for you here trying to preach the future in a city that's so European and so past-oriented. And I encourage you to keep thinking future. But come on out west, because eventually we're going to need you out there.
Yeah, in your...
we need good video people there, too.
Well, maybe we'll move. We'll go out west. I'm ready to go up. I'm ready to leave anytime you want. I'm ready. I'd like to do video in outer space. What the heck? The thing that I noticed, or is very obvious, is that you say that this is programmed into our DNA, into our... it's a destiny almost that we should do this.
There's no question. If you study the thrust of evolution, we started in a Precambrian swamp 4.5 billion years ago. Although there's a new theory that Crick, the Nobel Prize winner, Crick and Watson, discovered the DNA code. He has a new theory called directed panspermia, that probably planet Earth was seeded by intelligent people like ours. So we could do it ourselves. We could seed other planets, because evolution has happened so quickly here that couldn't have happened in 4.5 billion years. But in any case, for 4.5 billion years, we went from the Precambrian slime to the shoreline, from the shoreline to the forest, and the forest, 2 feet, climb trees, faster, higher. The faster and higher you move, the smarter you have to be, because you have to collaborate and cooperate over a distance. We're on a tree saying, hello there, over there, watch that baboon piss on that lion. Long-distance communication, mobility, altitude, velocity, better communications. That's this. Evolution wants us to fly high, move fast, and communicate and articulate better with each other. So the pressure into space, we're being squeezed off the planet Earth like birds from a nest. All of our mythology says that the higher places up there, our kingdom is not of this earth. Every tribe has the message, the myth, that somewhere up there is the next stage of our revolution. And now the Russians are up there in their Soyuz stations. We've got our shuttle up there right this minute. Unfortunately, the military, they tell us there are some experiments going on there, with insects, and they're doing experiments. The real experiments.
The insect experiment was free, by the way. There's some kid donated that. Right?
Yeah. But there are a lot of experiments going on right now as we talk in the shuttle on laser weapons, new forms of high beam weapons. They're not telling us about that.
I had read somewhere, again, another small article. These are all the small articles in the papers, that the shuttle was about to be abandoned when the Pentagon came in and said, we'll bail you out, but now you have to do this, and unrolled a list a mile long of military experiments to do with it. What's the chance then, or the hope of us getting control of that? Allen Ginsberg said they'll never send up a poet. What's the chance of them sending up a poet, getting that back?
Well, see, I don't know. I don't consider Allen Ginsberg my authority on space. I'm sorry.
No, he just says
he's a lovely 19th century,
but he said he
beatnik poet.
I think he meant
I wouldn't trust Allen's.
I think what he meant is that it will be held by military. It will be held by politicians or business, and not the.
Why isn't Allen more active in the space movement?
I don't think he really cares to leave the planet.
He doesn't want to.
No.
Allen's given up. He believes in the Buddhist void and so forth. And he would be a little jealous, I think, if we did send up a poet, and it's going to be Burroughs. William Burroughs is right with me on space. Burroughs says, the planet Earth is so screwed up, the only solution is get off. You listen to William Burroughs, who's 1,000 times smarter, really, than Allen Ginsberg. Allen's a wonderful poet. When it comes to really precise, logical thinking and scientific training, Burroughs is your man. So William Burroughs is going to be the first poet in space, and I'm going to send him up there if I can do it.
I gather you believe that civilians will eventually get to take these trips, that will be able to be part of this program, that it will not be held for. Another interesting thing you said in your book, the meek shall inherit the earth.
Yeah.
By meaning the meek, you mean the people not brave enough or ready to expand their intelligence or take these chances.
There's no question of it that unless we move into space, communism is creeping all over Europe. Europe's going to go communist within 10, 15 years. They all admit it. It's going to be a Parisian form of communism, just as a Czechoslovakian form of communism, but it's going to be that way. And America will be taken over by a military, militaristic, I've said that twice, industrial bureaucracy. It's happening regularly, and my debate partner, Gordon Liddy, is all for it, and I have to struggle, to warn people against it. So the planet Earth is going to be an enormous insectoid, urbanoid, garrison state with no individuality and total uniformity within 10 or 15 to 20 years, unless we free thinkers can move into space and start, showing them. It's always been that way. The Western frontier has always been the place where individuals and free thinkers and those that want to thumb their nose at authority and disrespect authority and try new methods. It's going to be in the far frontiers. And one of the reasons why I want to go into space is that's as far away from the man as you can get.
A good place to. That's a good thought.
That's a good place to quit. Huh?
Life extension is part of this.
Life extension, yeah.
Is it?
Well, as I said before, science is the key to everything. Humanistic science, not Pentagon science or General Electric science. My scientific friends in immunology and antigen research in genetics tell me within the 2 to 5 years we'll have a pill or an inoculation which will double the human lifespan. Now, I'll tell you, the Christians don't want that because that puts the Christians out of a job right immediately.
You're saving souls.
Yeah.
If you live forever, there's no need to save a soul.
Yeah, right. Because most religions are based upon fear of death and ignorance. Now, if you live for a long time, you're going to get bored watching Howard Cosell on Monday Night Football, right? You've got to increase your intelligence, and you've got to go into space. You've got to have new places to go. So space migration, intelligence increase, and life extension go together. You can't have one without the other. We got to get smarter if we go into space. If we're going to live a long time, we got to get smarter.
You're not going to stay here.
Oh my God.
Stay here forever.
So on the other hand, that's the way evolution works. When we move from the shoreline to the forest, there are literally thousands of neurological and biochemical changes that have to take place when we convert from 4-foot to 2-foot people. So as we move into space, we're going to live longer and get smarter. Smarter people have more fun. Smarter people enjoy collaboration and communication rather than conflict and killing. Intelligent people, by and large, are good vibration people. Intelligent people are funny. They like to laugh. They like to be surprised. They like novelty. They like imagination. So that space migration, intelligence increase, it adds up to a bumper sticker called SMILE. So I believe evolution wants us to smile.
All right. Okay, that's
Cut.
it. We're through. That's the end.